All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Interviewing Wednesdays. We're very glad you're with us today. It's March 17th, 2021, St. Patrick's Day for those here in the United States. We're just very glad you're with us today. For those people on Zoom, whenever you have a question, just as soon as you think about it, put it in the chat box. For those people on Facebook, just put your question right in the comment field as soon as you think about it. And as our speakers take a break, we'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. If you're on a PC or a Mac, we ask using Zoom, we ask you to use the speaker view, which is in the lower left-hand corner. And where that red arrow is, you can grab that white line and drag it back and forth and change the aspect of how big the speaker and how big the PowerPoint slide is by dragging it back and forth, whatever works best for you. Please note this event will be recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career at IFW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you post a comment in the chat box or have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your name, picture, or comments to appear. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. I founded Career at IFW in 2008 to help the unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I started CareerUSA.org to help people outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It's available on Amazon. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. I'll tell you about our upcoming program at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. You'll hear more about that in just a couple seconds. Well, we've got two speakers who have put together this 13-part workshop for us. Mark McDonald, who leads the practice interview team, and Walt Glass, who does the interview success workshop. So, gentlemen, you'd like to introduce yourselves.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm wearing green here. St. Patty's Day and a name like McDonald. You know, I just have to wear something green. Next time I'll get a lighter color, though. That didn't show up very well. So I've been running the pit crew for about 8 years now, and I just posted up my information there. I encourage you to link in with me. Jeff will show you the profile in a minute, but also there's the pit crew email and the phone number. So if you have any questions, you can send me an email or also give me a call on that number. It comes directly to me, and don't be confused if I don't answer and you get a message that doesn't say anything about the pit crew. This is a Google phone number, so it just redirects to my personal mobile phone. So that's how you can contact me, but I know when it comes in that it's coming from the pit crew line. So that's how to reach me. And so the pit crew provides practice interviews, and we always have ever since the beginning. That's what we did, and we did it inside a church, and we would do several at a time, 3 or 4 on the days that we met, which was on Wednesday afternoon, exactly this time. Since COVID's come along, we've taken all of that into the virtual world. And so we give practice interviews with 3 panel members. So they're panel interviews. They're done on Zoom technology, and they work very well. When this first occurred back in March and April, I was a little worried that video interviews would not be anything close to realistic, but they are very realistic using the Zoom technology. And so we give you a chance to convince a group of hiring managers that you're the right person for a job that you select. So you send in a job description and your resume, and we prepare in advance for an interview that's very focused, it's very customized, it's very personalized to your situation. And then after the interview is over, there's some discussion about the interview, what you did well, what you could have done better. And so that's how the pit crew works. When you're ready to practice, just send me your information, resume and job description to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. Please give me a little advance notice. It takes 2 to 3 days to set up an interview. That's to get your schedule and the interviewer schedules all lined up. But we give them any day of the week, and as soon as your information comes in, I'll go to work setting up your practice interview in 2 to 3 days from when I receive the information. So that's how the pit crew works. Why don't you show my LinkedIn profile? There we go. It's also in the chat window, and you can search in LinkedIn. You can search my name and use the middle initial, or you can search pit crew, and I should show up very close to the top. So join my network. My background's in high-tech electronics in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, mainly is where I work, but I work for some large companies. and my network can help you find a job by linking with me. And then finally, one other thing I do besides organizing the pit crew and hosting the video conferences is I coach on but only on one topic, and that topic is how to answer the question, why did you leave your last job, or why did you leave your last position? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the most recent one. I coached someone a couple of weeks ago who between 2008 and 2012, like a 4-year time period, had 5 different jobs. So we figured out how to explain that as kind of one period of upheaval in the economic world. There was a big housing crisis in that time frame, but also in their professional history, because they worked a long time in one job a long time before that, and in one job a good long time after that. So that's the way we handled it. And so every situation is unique, and if it's going to cause you some angst answering the question, why did you leave your last job or any of your previous jobs, then let's have a discussion about that. We'll do that confidentially on the phone or on Zoom, and you'll be prepared to answer that question. All right, I think that's all I've got. Walt.
Good afternoon, everybody. Walt Glass. I've asked a lot of people if they'd like to do a practice interview, and they say, well, I'm not ready yet. I said, okay. And so my thoughts inside, I said, go ahead, go on the real interview, and you can get ready on your real interviews. And that might take a few before you kind of get used to doing it. So, Mark and I offer an opportunity for you to practice without penalty. All right. This is where everybody's on your side. Everybody's trying to help you improve, get better. We want to shorten your job search. And so I offer a different approach to interviewing. So number one, it's really a learning interview where you learn some information about what to prepare, how to prepare, the kind of things you can prepare, the different categories of questions and the options, the strategies. You don't know how to answer a question until you know where you are in the process, what the question is, and who's asking it. And so you have options to answer these questions. And so what are those kinds of things? How do I really differentiate myself? The first thing you do in a presentation, which is what an interview really is you get some content together. Now, you may not have all the content. People may ask questions that you haven't really prepared for, but do you know how to prepare for that type of question? I mean, how do you really handle a negative question, for example? What are your options for telling me about yourself? How do you get a conversational interview instead of the interrogation type? How do you get to that point where you feel excited about meeting the people and talking to them and finding out information and showing how you can add value, how your experience and background, how you fit the culture? So those are the things that I like to pay attention to in a very informal setting. You do get a video of your interview. You also get a handout that goes over these critical differentiation and structures and strategies, approaches, et cetera, options. And I give you some other information in the handout to help you also be more successful with interviewing in your preparation and your actual execution and your follow-up. So you have to be registered to attend. My LinkedIn About section gives you a lot more information about it. It's my current job. It's a ministry. It is free. You just have to register to attend. And I'll send out some dates and you can register and sign up for particular dates. So it's come on down and learn. It's not a place where you got to sit in a hot seat. In fact, my suggestion to you is come learn the fundamentals and understand how to prepare and what it is to do. Secondly, you can then practice those fundamentals in the second type of interview. And thirdly, then you can either come back to mine or you go to Mark and we do more of the mock interview. So now we're looking at real type questions. We study your information and your resume and your all that kind of background. We look at companies. Have you lost me?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. And so, we do more of the mock interview. So I want you to put in the chat window, how many practice interviews do you think you need to have to gain some confidence in interviewing?
Great question. A lot.
3 to 5, as many as you can, 10, exclamation point, a lot, 5 to 10, as many as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it certainly is more than one, probably more than two, probably more than three. All right. So once you get that content and then you practice your delivery, then you can go to the third step, what we call building rapport, making the connection, showing your interest and enthusiasm. And if you don't know how to answer a question, how can you be enthusiastic, right? It kind of gives you a mindset of fear. Let me answer these questions. If I walk in and say I need a job, as opposed to I can't wait to talk to people about this job, it's going to be different. So I like to help you with those kinds of things. So let me know, sign up, send me an email. Be glad to get you registered, and you can practice learning without squirming.
Great. Thank you very, very much. All right. So today we're going to do session number 11, target companies, informational interviews, and networking part 2. So gentlemen, take it away.
All right, there you go. You guys should see it.
Yep, you're good.
Nod your head if you do. Yeah, very good. So target companies, networking, informational interviews. This is, we also talk about networking in session 2. So I'm going to give my part of it very briefly. And if you want more information about networking, take a look at session 2, okay, which would have been early January. And also known as how to shorten your job search. So there was a recruiter yesterday on Frisco Connect, and you guys may know Trevor Houston, or the Who You Know guys, and his new thing, which I think is very interesting, is to start putting value on landings, okay? And you know, this recruiter who had 150 landings or something since the beginning of the year, you know, put a $15 million price tag on that. So that makes sense. That's about $100,000 of landing, right? But now you need to think about that in your terms of your salary expectation and how much time you have to land, because we want to shorten your job search. And if we shorten it by a month, that's a whole month of salary you weren't going to receive otherwise. Okay, so this is so that's what we're talking about. Target companies, networking, informational interviews, how to shorten your job search. All right, so let's talk about the topics now. We're on topic 11, and the topics are grouped in 3 parts. There's the mouse not working. Okay, there we go. The first 5 are all about preparing to interview. And you see session there, number 2, we had some extra time in our schedule, so we put networking up in session 2 as well. And so there's 2 sessions out of the 13 that cover networking. The second group of 5 is all about effective interviewing, and we wrapped that up last week with building rapport. As Walt mentioned, as you get more and more comfortable and more confident with your interviewing, and this is the point we want to get you to, you start thinking about how you're going to build rapport with the interviewer. You know, during the interview, that's a real-time thing. And so with enough bandwidth and preparation, you're now able to do that. You have some cycles to spend on in the moment, figuring out how you're going to build rapport with this particular interviewer, which is going to help your chances. So now we're on a group of special topics. There's 3 of them, and then we're going to wrap up the series of 13 at the end of the month. And so today, target companies, informational interviews, and networking. And then next week, difficult interviewers and difficult questions, and challenging questions. Tell me about a time you failed, or an interviewer is particularly grumpy or distracted. We'll talk about all of that. And then the final session, we're going to go over all the mistakes that we see in the interviews that we give, and the pit crew and Walt's training sessions. So this reinforces that knowing is not doing, and probably most of the people know they shouldn't do things, but in that moment, they do them and they're mistakes. So maybe knowing what those mistakes were that are very common will help you to avoid them as well. Now, when we used to meet face-to-face, we didn't really have an organized structure like this. This has come about since the COVID time, but we would have a session at the end of the interviews when we got together face-to-face, and we have a little education session, and they would be kind of directed at whatever came up that day, because people would come with questions, or they'd have questions about the interview that happened that day. Now it's much more structured and much more comprehensive, but we don't have that interaction like we used to. So I encourage you, if you have a question, to put it down in the chat window. I'll be glancing at it every now and then, but we'll certainly stop at places in the presentation and make sure we get your questions answered. So trying to get back some of that give and take that we had when we were meeting face to face. Okay, let's kick it off here with a poll. And which activity is your primary method of finding target companies? Your primary method of finding target companies. And there's the poll. So let's take a minute and see what the answer is.
And for those people on Facebook, please just put in A, B, C, D, E, or F, and we'll add those answers into the poll that we're doing on Zoom.
Also, if you choose F, could you put in the chat window an F and then what other method you use?
All right, about 15 more seconds. How many do we have? About half the people. So we're going to wrap it up at 1 minute on the timer. Please get your contribution in. All right, well, this is consistent with what we've seen before, but last time I think it was like 40%, so just a strong majority selected A, but so I selected company that has a target posted position. So there you go. I drive around the neighborhood. So last time we didn't have anybody, but I hear this, and we were meeting face to face, you know, people would say, I'm looking for, you know, any company in the North Plano area. Okay, so just drive around and pick out a company and, you know, then go see if they got a posting or something like that. But I think a lot of more people who admit to that actually do that. I select companies I know in the DFW area that did not get any votes. Use a database. Well, good for you. And Walt teaches a good course on the database available. When a recruiter contacts you, okay, with an opportunity. And then the other, did we get two answers? I don't see the chat window.
Yeah, we had somebody said independent vetting research. Somebody said LinkedIn networking, and on Facebook, Anna said, I try to find companies where I have a connection.
All right. Well, very good. Thanks for that. That helps inform us on what you're interested in, how you're working. And can I just close this?
Yeah, just X out of the.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
Oh.
We don't need to review those. Those were from last time. We put this in here just in case the poll doesn't work and we need to have some data to talk about. All right, I've just got about 3 or 4 slides, and I'm going to build this huge slide. And I put this together after our first round, I think, because, you know, it just seemed to me that people were not getting how effective and powerful it can be to network with purpose, you know, to find companies that you're interested in and then go to work building relationships inside those companies for the day when an opportunity appears. So I thought I'd go over this so it's clear in your mind that there's a lot to gain. But I think, and I've been thinking about this for a couple of 3 years, you know, why do people not spend more time networking? And part of it is I'm convinced there's several different reasons, but I'm convinced the main one is it's a very much like sales and can be frustrating. Let's put it that way. So when you're in sales, and I had a commission sales job for a couple of years, and you know, about 1 person out of 25 might, you know, turn into a client. And to meet 25 people, I had to do a whole lot of work. And about 20 of those 25 were not really interested at all, you know, and then of the 5, maybe 1 would be interested enough to go farther than just a conversation. Now, I think when you're networking for work or to find a new job, it's not going to be quite that challenging, but those are the kinds of numbers you need to expect. And Carol Raquel gave us her talk a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago maybe, about networking, and she said, you know, she gets a 4 out of 10 or 3 out of 10 response. She's pretty good with that. Okay, so but let's just acknowledge that a lot of time is spent, and you know, less than half of it is productive time. It seems like it's not productive time, but on the other side, one right connection is all you need to close the deal. So, but let's go over this slide, and this shows the virtuous cycle that you're going to get in when you start doing some networking. And I'm going to define a few words for you, like what's the difference between a contact and a supporter or a connection, and go over the whole cycle. So this is the whole thing at once. You see the hidden job market there. You see applying for an appointment or applying for a posting. You know, you see the little car is going to be you going around the circle, the car driver. This is the pit crew after all. And there's the checkered flag at the end when you've landed a position. Oops, now it went backwards. Here we go. Okay, so let's start off with networking, just networking in general. And so you start your job search, you want to let people know, and all kinds of people. You'll hear this, and I think it's true. Just tell people you meet in the grocery store, tell people at your church, tell people involved with your children's activities, sports or theater or singing or whatever it is. You just want to let them know. And so you're going to meet a lot of people, and they're going to be there, and we call those contacts. Okay, you may not know them very well, or you may know them quite well. Okay, but you need to have a long list of contacts. Once you find you have something in common with a contact, then you have an opportunity to make the relationship a little deeper. And the commonality may be some work-related thing. It could be you went to the same college. It could be your children do things together. Could be neighborhood. Could be church. Jay Fusaro. Who speaks, Jeff, on networking? Jay Arbetter. Jay Arbetter. You know, he tells his story around cycling. He's a big-time cyclist. And so he tells a lot of his networking story around people in the cycling industry. I think he also plays tennis. But anyway, he's made contacts through some of the sports that he participates in himself. And so once you met somebody and you find you have something in common, they're going to be more interested in helping you. And you can even nurture those. And Walt's going to talk about, you know, nurturing a connection, a contact who's become a connection because now you know something more about them and you have something in common. And then they can even progress to being supporters and champions. And sometimes, you know, they will go and work really hard to help you find a job because of this connection you have with them. Now they're going to give you access to the hidden job market. So these are jobs that may be available but are not yet posted. And sometimes people say the hidden job market is pretty good size. I think it's reasonable to expect the hidden job market is about 3 times the size of the posted job market at any given time. And a lot of those jobs may be planned. They may be in somebody's operating plan, but they're planned for later in the year. Or a certain event happens, they reach, you know, 100 million in sales. They're going to release some requisitions to grow their business. So those exist in somebody's strategic plan, for instance, but they haven't been posted yet. So many companies will, if they find a good candidate, will go ahead and accelerate those roles or bring them up a quarter or 2 quarters. And since they found somebody who's a great match, turn that into a real job, a posted job, and then you're right in line to take it. And you know, you've heard about it. You can hear about those jobs from some of the connections, contacts, and supporters you make through your networking. Okay, so that's how that you get access to the hidden job market. You can also gain access to it through informational interviews. Now, this is I changed the title in this, networking with purpose. Okay, so now instead of just meeting people and saying, well, I'm looking for work and I'm a project manager. Do you know anybody who's hiring project managers? You have a more directed and purposeful reason for talking to them, because you have a list of target companies. You have identified, and Walt's going to talk about this extensively, you've identified companies that you believe are a good match to what you'd like to do. If they have a mission or value statement that you agree with, they may be right down the street, they may be close, whatever criteria you use to decide that they're good for you. And now when you do your networking, you are specifically asking if the person you met knows anyone who works at those jobs, or those companies. So it's a very simple ask, and it works with people you know and you don't know, you know, that you've never met. You know, so you could just say your title. You know, I'm a senior project manager, and I was wondering if you know someone, or maybe you know someone who knows someone who works at PepsiCo or NTT Data. You just give them a couple of names, and you know, if you've made a connection with them, if you have something in common, they may go to work for you. Okay, so there's several benefits to making this. It's a very simple ask. You've told them your title. You haven't spent a lot of time talking about your so-called elevator speech, about all the things you've achieved or done in your career. You know, they will never remember that. They can remember your title, and they can remember your target companies. You've only given them a couple of three things to remember, and you have a good chance of making of getting a name through that. And Walt puts a number on it. I won't say it here, but he'll say, you know, if you ask like I asked, do you know someone, or perhaps know someone who knows someone, you have a very high probability of getting a hit that they know someone in that company. And then once you know someone in that company, you can find out their contact information, and then you can call them up and ask them questions about how they like working there, what's their, you know, experience with the position, and you're going to ask them for advice and feedback about your career, and information and insight about the company and the things that they're doing, and you're going to learn things that are going to be valuable. And you're also going to start to develop a connection with this contact that was initially just a name that you were given by someone you met. And so, and if you, what's the word I want to use? If you nurture that connection, it can become quite powerful, and they may even, go to the next slide, become a referral for you when a position pops up or becomes available, becomes posted. Or they may even let you know that this hidden job market, right? You know, you sound like you'd be a good match for this posting we're going to put up at the end of the quarter. At the beginning of the next quarter, we're going to post up for this job. We had a story in the pit crew where a member who was coming, who'd been to the pit crew several times, wanted to change careers. They were in a business role. They were in their 50s. They weren't getting much traction. They had little ageism going on. And so they decided they wanted to sell homes, you know, which has turned out to be a great choice. And so they went out and started walking in these sales offices at these home builders, and walked into, can't remember the home builder now, but just turns out at this office on the property where they were building this neighborhood was the VP of HR for that company. And so he started, you know, telling her a story, and, you know, she felt a connection with him, and she helped him. She helped him build his resume and shepherded him through the process, and he got hired there, and it's gone on to be very successful. Okay, just walking in and meeting somebody you didn't know. So sometimes you just get lucky. And I was taught this when I was doing commission sales as well. You know, you put in the work, luck happens. It just happens. It's kind of an amazing thing, but you put in the work, have a good attitude, good things will happen. Okay, so informational interviews, you're going to gain some inside information. So when a application for employment comes up, you move into the fast lane. Okay, so you may have to go ahead and apply, and it may go into the ATS black hole, but you're going to contact the connections you've made inside the company through your informational interviewing efforts, and you're going to get them to sponsor your application. And we got some good numbers on this. So if you just apply in the dark, so to speak, without any connection inside the company, you've got about a 2% chance of being called, about 1 in 50. Okay. It completely flips if you have a contact inside the company who sponsors your employment, goes up to 1 in 2, 50% chance of being contacted just because you have a referral. And I heard this, first time I heard this, I found that very hard to believe. And so the next few times that this happened to somebody in the pit crew, I asked them, okay, so you're the person you met, you know, carried your resume into HR and you got a call. Did they ask you any qualifying questions? And no, they didn't. They didn't ask any qualifying questions. They went right to the interview with the hiring manager based on that referral. That was the first step. So I became a believer. I mean, there's a huge difference between just applying in the blind and applying with an employee referral. And that includes contacting internal recruiters, but we got another section on working with recruiters. But here we're focused on connecting with somebody inside the organization through your efforts to find out information about the company and the roles that they have, and then using them as a employee referral to advance your candidacy. And then that information you've gained through the informational interviews, and you can have more than one of them, and you probably should. If you have a really strong desire to work at a particular company, you should try to nurture several contacts and connections inside the company. But now you know things, you may know things that are so fresh through your contacts and connections that nobody else knows, and you can use those to inform your interview. So you become, not only get into the fast lane, you become the preferred candidate because you're more effective at interviewing. And of course, that then leads to crossing the finish line and carrying the flag off to the left of the screen. You've landed, congratulations. But if the cycle doesn't work at a particular company, you're going to keep it going at other companies as well. It's a very effective way to get yourself landed much sooner than the hard way, which is just applying online. You're up, Walt. Anybody have any questions?
I don't see any questions, but I do want to remind everybody who's on the call that this is one of the reasons I started a new session every Monday. We have different speakers talking just about networking because as you've heard, this is really, really important. So, join us every Monday at 1 o'clock. We've got different speakers. We've got 12 or 16 different speakers lined up. So you'll get a different point of view every Monday at 1 o'clock Central.
Okay, if you still have some questions, just drop them into the chat window or put a note into YouTube so that Jeff can forward those questions to us. Be glad to help with those answers. So let's kind of go back to the basics a little bit. We're going to cover some very obvious stuff beginning, but I still want to get our minds set in the right place. And so let's talk about targeting companies. Several of you mentioned use different methods for targeting companies. And all of them that you find a target company with have value and they work, but there's some that have better value than others. But let's look at why should we even target companies to begin with. So if we compare targeting companies versus applying online, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. What do you think is the fastest method working to be found or finding? And the second question is, who's in charge of your job search? Who's in control? Are you in charge of it, or is the company going to be in charge of it? All right. So there's a couple questions. I want to add another one. Would you rather get a job or your dream job? All right. These questions are called telegraphing the answers in advance. I mean, y'all know the answers. and sometimes I love it when in an interview they telegraph the answer. It says, well, you do feel like you should be detail oriented, don't you? Oh, yes, I should be detail oriented, something like that. But this is the difference in targeting a company where we just start looking at the company. And so the last question is why do you want to apply to a company where you don't fit? If you're not going to fit, and I use a model of I am, I do, I help, who you are, what you do, and how you can help. And who you are is your soft skills, your personality. It's the culture that you bring to a culture that a company has. And is that a fit? Now, I'm told that Fujitsu is a pretty much a detail-oriented managerial style. So they do a lot of, it's not a hands-off style of leadership. And so I haven't validated that or said that, yeah, that's exactly the way it is, but that's what I've heard secondhand. So if you don't want to be micromanaged, maybe that's not the right place for you to work. So why don't you find that out before you put all the energy and effort into going to a company where it's not going to work for you. So why don't we target the companies where it looks like it's a great fit for us? So of course, everything we do that we're working with all these sessions with interviewing is to help you shorten your job search. And this is one of the areas where I think a lot of people don't take advantage of targeting companies that will really help you shorten that job search. So what do? Oh, I don't want to pick out a company. All right, well, what kind of company do you want to work for? You know, the company puts a job description out there and says, this is the kind of person we're looking for. This is the kind of experience we expect them to have. These are the kind of activities and things they'll do. Here's some of the requirements that we have that you should meet, whether it's certifications or education or years of experience, things like that. They put all that out there to say, okay, let me see if we can match that. Well, before I start targeting a company, what kind of company do I want to work for? What does it look like? And so I mentioned a few of the type of characteristics that you might want to look at a company and say, how are these for me? And actually prioritize them, all right? Is location a very high priority for you? For example, are you able to relocate? So, and if you were able to relocate, where would you like to relocate? So I can look for a company. So I love Raleigh, North Carolina. Let me go look and see what's available in Raleigh, North Carolina. That might be one of my criteria. So put these kinds of things together and say, what is really important to me in finding a company, so that when I'm looking at companies and I'm trying to get information about them, I can compare them to what I'm really looking for and see how well that fits. All right. So that's how we can start. We've got to figure out what we want before we go looking for it, right? I know that you can get your metal detector and go down to the beach and run it over the sand and see if you can't figure something out, whether you're going to find something or not. And at least you're at the beach. At least you're at a place where there might be some treasure. It's better than looking at the playground. All right. So where do we research? How do we find these targeted companies? So we got to build a list of potential companies where we want to work. So where do we start? How do we do that? Now, some of you mentioned, I will take the A answer, which is I'll target a company that has an open position. Now, the problem with that is we're leaving out all of the companies that have 75 to 85% of the jobs that are not posted that also could be a target company. So yes, you're finding some, but we're limiting ourselves to the potential companies that we could work for if that's the only method we use. So you got to use more than just one method. Reference Solutions, the Clifton Strengths, that's another story. Reference Solutions, also known as Reference USA, that's changed now that it's been purchased. And the A to Z databases in your library, or any reference librarian that you go to says, I'm looking for information about companies. What databases do you have? What do you suggest that I look where I can gain that information? There are many that are out there. I mentioned these two. They're very, very similar in nature, and you can look up parameters. I think I've got a slide coming up on that as to how I can search for companies. I mean, there's a lot of companies just in the area where you live that you don't know anything about. All right. One of you, I know at least one's from Chicago, one's from Nashville, Tennessee, one's in, I believe, in Ontario. So you're not interested perhaps in the DFW company. I don't know whether you want to move down here and get rid of the snow and the ice. We did have a few days of it here, but nonetheless, your location and your area they have information where you can find that. So business journals. Jack Bick has gone around the country in his history, in his career. If you know about Jack, he's a career coach, local in the DFW area. And he started a lot of business journals, including the Dallas Business Journal. And the Dallas Business Journal has a company list. Every issue has a list of some sort, and then they have the book of lists that comes out annually where they combine them all. Most favorite companies to work for, smaller companies, larger companies, startups. I mean, all these different categories of companies that you can go look for. Because you say, well, I'm interested in a startup, or I'm interested in a medium-sized company, or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of lists that are out there. The best company to work for list, all right? Those are out there. Talking with your Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Corporations. There's a source that we don't usually think of to tap, but they know what's going on in their area. They know what companies are coming to town or are not coming to town or are growing or looking for more office space or those kinds of things. They can really give us some great information that say, hey, here's some companies that we may want to look at. So there's a lot of different places we can look. Now, how many companies should we have? Well, if you were listening to John McDormand yesterday when he was talking about networking in the networking session, he starts with a list of 200, saying that 200 has always proved that if you have a list of 200 and you work vetting these companies and you do the process and put in the work to network with those companies, you will be successful in finding a job. Well, 200 is kind of hard to work for at a time. And so I would say 200 is a fine list, but at least I'm going to work with 5 at a time. So go through, pick out some companies, then you say, all right, I first have to vet them. I've got to figure out if I want to work there. Do they meet any of enough of my criteria so that I want to work there? So I'll get this list and I go into an area, pick out my parameters for size, location, et cetera, and I come up with all this list of companies. And so I'll start looking and trying to vet them. So I'll look at their company website. You know, the about section in a company website is a lot of good information that tells you about that company. It really does. It's a great section to look at. If they have a 10K, to go look at the 10K section 5 is the management discussion and analysis, and it talks about what management's saying about the company, and it's just right for what's going on, what's happening, where they're headed, what they're looking to do. So there's sources of information that are out there everywhere. Just Googling the company name, Googling the executives of a company, finding out whatever kind of information you can on your matching against your criteria. Of course, social media. Today, I'll skip LinkedIn. LinkedIn is huge now, and LinkedIn has added some more search parameters on companies. I think they've got salary now included in there. They got some size. They got some parameters of their own that you're looking for, searching for companies. Glassdoor and Indeed have some things out there on companies. You have to be careful what you listen to and where the source of their information comes from. If you listen to some of the comments that are made about a company in Glassdoor, they're either positive or negative. I mean, there's kind of no in between. And you never know. I mean, when you get to a large company, somebody may say they hate it, another person says they love it. Well, the probability is that there's probably an area of the company that's not desirable, right? That doesn't mean the whole company's not desirable. So, of course, social media. So today, I would probably reduce it down to what's our top social media? Facebook. I would look at Facebook. There's some others out there, but I think Facebook is probably the primary one where you can spend your time taking a look. And of course, recruiters can give us some information as well, because they know what companies and the companies that they've worked for and the companies they represent. And of course, we talked about earlier about driving around your targeted area. I know there are people that says, you know, here's this big building and there's a lot of companies inside. I don't know what's in there. And so they'll walk in and just look at the list of the companies that are posted on the wall and say, gee, what are these companies? And maybe this is one I might want to work for. It's definitely a way that you say, gee, that seems like a waste of time. You never know where that opportunity is going to come from. So spend a little time doing all. So reference solutions, I was told you I'll show you this kind of slide, but here's all the kind of parameters it has in finding a company. So it's got some really detailed information that you can look at. So one of the ways to do it is to say, well, I like this kind of company. So I'll enter that company and I'll go find out this keyword under business types. This keyword is the SIC code and the NAICS code. Then I can put in that code and put in a location, and I can find companies that do that same type of business within the area. So it's a really quick way of finding out information about other companies. And one of the neat things they have at the bottom of the list when you look at a particular companies are their competitors. Well, each competitor can become a target company as well, as I'm going to show you right here. So you have a target company. Well, they have competitors, they have clients, they have vendors, they have affiliates, they have associations, all right? So when I search through all of those connections through my target company, I can find additional target companies as well. This is showing kind of like the same industry. If this company does this kind of business in this industry, then all the associates that I just listed around the circles around the target company are messing with that same industry as well. So there's just another way to try to expand your list. So how many? Select about 50. Just, we go through the 200 if you like to, but pick 50 of those based on some preliminary criteria, a couple of 2 or 3 things says, okay, these are worth looking at further. All right. So maybe it's location, or maybe it's size, maybe it's revenue volume, or whatever it might be. So these are the ones I want to start looking at, and you subset those. And so I've got 3 or 4 elements, and I pick these. Now I'm going to see if I can't do additional criteria to reach down to about 20 companies. All right. So these are going to be my hot list. It's my initial hot list. The rest of them are still on the list. All right. We're not going to take them off. They're still there. Now I'm going to go through those and say, what are my top 5? So I'm going to rank them 1 to 20, or at least A, B, C, D. These 5 are in A's. These are 5 are B, C's, and D's. Now I'm going to really start working those in the networking process for those 5 companies. And then as I finish, or I get networking done and started on one company, and I get it working because that, it takes time to do all this stuff and make it happen, I could start adding another company and start working on that one and continue to do that. And so once I finish doing the first 20, and you don't ever drop one off the list unless you find out that, no, this is not the place, it's wrong, so I'm going to take it off the list. But just because there's not something available today, or something doesn't work out today, doesn't mean I still might want to work there later in the future. So that's my suggestion for how you can go through, find the list, vet the list, start working on the network. Any questions?
Yeah, we had a few questions. Let's see here. If you keep getting shot down by a particular company, is it a bad thing, or should you consider another company outright? How many times do you want to be told no, I guess?
Infinity. if they're really a hot company for you, and a lot of job search is timing. It's just timing. So networking is it's like the parable of the sower. You're out there laying seeds, and some fall on fertile ground and some don't. They fall on the stones, they fall on the thorns. You don't get any action from them, but some are fertile. And you have to nurture them and raise them until they grow, and then have some results from that. So if you've got one of those companies, maybe it's all just timing. It's just timing. You're getting shot down. So there was one person, I know she was in sales, and she sent an email to the CEO for this company for every day for a straight year. Okay. He called her and says, "You're not going to quit, are you?" And she said, no. Evidently he didn't block her or something. Ended up having a conversation with her, and her persistence paid off for the sale. So it eventually paid off. So that's an extreme example, but don't give up on a company where you want to work for. Keep working for avenues, keep working for the referrals, keep working for that information, keep looking for contacts and connections. We'll talk about that next.
Okay,
Any other
John,
questions?
John asked, can you recommend some questions to understand culture?
What's it like working here? What's not on the job description that would tell me more information about how a person and what the environment's like to be successful here? What do you think the most unwritten things are about this company that's not listed anywhere, but is a general practice that is always used? I can give you an example of that. I went to work for EDS back in 1974. There were 2 or 3 things that I learned. One, everybody needs to have a sense of urgency. That's not written down anywhere. 2, if you find a problem, you own it. You either solve it or get it into the hands of a person who can solve it. Okay, that was just the way we should operate. 3, there's no protocol for finding out someone who has the answer to your questions. Find out who the person is that has the knowledge of the question and go straight to them to get help. You don't have to go through any other type of chain of command or anything like that. So those things are not written down. And so that kind of culture says, well, I'll tell you, EDS, they said, we don't have any politics. And I said, well, you just don't have very many politics, very much, because I think every company has some, but they do minimize the politics in that corporation. And so you don't ask the question, what are the politics like here? But you ask, what's the leadership style? What's important in the company as to how we work with others? Those kind of things. That help?
Yes. All right. Another question. Keisha asked a question. When does persistence turn into annoyance or even stalking? Well, my answer to that is when you get a restraining order put against you, then it's time to stop. But, until that time, until they tell you no, but better to find out no,
Yeah. Well, let me borrow something from, I think it was Jay Arbetter. I don't know whether it's Fasaro or Arbetter. I think it was Arbetter. He suggests contacting somebody, was it five times, 6 times?
Yeah, 5
And
to
maybe
7
using-
times. Yeah.
Yeah, about 7 times and using different media and different ways to contact them, not just, just an email saying, what's the status and all that sort of thing. And then you said on your last one, about the 7th one, you said, okay, this is the last time I will connect or contact you. This is the last time I'm going to say that. And so I'm going to say goodbye at this point. And he says, you'd be surprised how many times I get a response from that. So he suggests 7 times. I don't know, biblical number 7 is the sign of completion, I guess, or maybe it's 7 or something like that. But I think it can vary. And it depends on the frequency of how often you contact them, whether you become an annoyance or not. Contact them every day is certainly too much. Every week, maybe every 2 weeks is a little better, those kinds of things. And if you cannot contact them, and if you're just not saying, do you have any open positions, or is there any movement, or whatever it might be, if you connect with them and contact them, giving them some information that might be useful to them, asking a question about something that you might want to discuss with them, maybe that was something that you've seen in an issue or problem that they have that you might be able to help resolve, and say, gee, I'd like to talk with you more about that. Things like that make a difference in this repetition of getting back in touch with people. And it's just not the same thing. Differentiation is strong. I mean, how many messages do you get as a manager, hiring manager, from candidates who just say, gee, I'm still interested in any progress? And it's just the same old thing. And how much time does a hiring manager have to respond to those kinds of things?
Right.
So do something different.
All right, John was just saying he has to leave. He's got to leave early. Is this session being recorded? Yes, we record all of our sessions. Are all on the Career USA YouTube channel. I'll talk about that at the very end of the session. But Walt, we'll let you move on to topic number 3.
Let's go. Networking. Let's do a little few statistics here. Okay, so in general, keep hearing these numbers of how many jobs are not posted. So what does a company do? They have a position available. They start asking around inside the company. Is there somebody inside that they can promote to it? Or does somebody know somebody who might fill this kind of position before they go external? And that would be posting it. How much time do you spend surfing the net? You take a look at your week And how many hours a week or days out of the week do you spend surfing the net, looking for positions and putting in applications? A huge amount of time. The problem with that is that activity makes us feel like we're doing something, and we're being active and we're pursuing, and that makes us feel better because we're doing something. But it's just 2% productive, because only about 2% of the time are we going to get a response. It takes a lot of time to fill out those applications. So surfing the net, I'm saying do it, but don't spend more than 10 or 15% of your time. Do it on nights and weekends. Don't do it during productive hours when you can meet and talk to people, through networking. 40% of the jobs are filled through referrals. If you've hired people before, where do you put a person on the list when Jeff comes to you and say, listen, I know Mark McDonald. He's had a lot of experience in engineering. He's worked at several companies. He's been a relatively high level manager, a lot of responsibility and things. I think he's got a great background and stuff. Oh, I suggested you might want to talk with him. All right. Where does that person go on the list? Well, that's an easy question. I would much rather talk to somebody who knows somebody that has some trust and value in them than I would be by taking the gamut by saying, what did the ATS system spit out? 700%. What is that? Of those landing jobs, networking dominated job search messages on a scale of 7 to 1. Of those landing jobs, all right? That's a big number. It says networking is much more productive and effective than applying online, so it's in other job search methods. Here's the interesting one also, and that is only 7% of job searchers use referrals for whatever reasons. So before we start networking, we need to do some preparation. We just can't go out there and blindly start. We got to know some things. What are we selling? We'll call it, Jack Beck, I'm using his terminology here, the career coach, of unique selling proposition. What is it about you that you can say in 5, 7, 8 words about you that will get people's attention? And so I use, building skills and confidence for successful job interviews. Mark uses practice early, practice often, all right, for the pit crew. So you know that he has something to do with interviewing and practicing. We need to have our resumes ready because we might need that document in this process. I strongly suggest you do a biography. For networking, a biography can be a lot better tool to use than a resume because it says, here's information about me. It doesn't say I'm looking for a job. And there's times when you don't want to sell that I'm looking for a job. I'm more selling about information that I can gain from you, information that I can use to help me make some career decisions. But here's some information, because invariably, when you start talking in an informational interview, they'll start asking some questions about you at the end, almost always. So what have you done? Your attributes and your achievements. Your attributes are your self-discovery. How would I describe myself? All right. Well, I'm introverted and I don't like public speaking. So maybe that's not me, right? So what is? So you ask other people. There's a whole process of going through the deep dive that Jack has in his career coaching. It says, who am I? What do I enjoy doing? What do I love to do? How would you describe me? How do other people describe me, et cetera? References. Those people who know you and can talk about you to others in a positive way. I mean, I always suggest you do your due diligence on your references. So I'd say, Mark, if somebody were to call you and ask you, because I put your name down as a reference, what would you say about me? And then I listen to what Mark has to say, and then I decide whether I want to use him as a reference or not. All right. But what are the people that know you, know what you've achieved and what you've done? Have those available, have those ready. Your prioritized target companies. Know what's the list? Because when I'm talking to people, I want to start talking about knowing people in those companies and finding that referral. And then research your potential connections. So let's say that Jeff says, Walt, I suggest you ought to talk with Mark. He does pit crew and he does some practice interviewing. And I know you do a lot of interviewing stuff, and he's had years of experience doing that. Maybe you ought to talk to him. So I'll go out to to LinkedIn, and I'll start researching and looking up Mark and see what his background is. And one of the things I'm looking for is anything in common. Well, I'll tell you, if you want to make a connection with somebody, find something in common. So Mark and I are buds simply because we work in the interviewing arena of job search. Jeff and I are buds because we both try to help job seekers in their job search periods of time to help them be more effective and to get that job quicker, you know. So we have an automatic connection because we do the similar type of things. And there's a thing called Crystal Knows. It's an assessment tool. I haven't used it myself. Patty Bashy, who's got a job now, kind of introduced it to us. And there is a YouTube out there that Jeff has on Crystal Knows in one of the sessions for his Friday group. But it's how it goes in and does an assessment looking at the LinkedIn information, and it comes back and tells you assessment type stuff, kind of style, how to talk to them. I mean, it's got a lot of interesting information about it, but you might want to look into that as another way of saying, how can I find out about the people that I want to talk to? The worst thing I think you can do is just go into somebody blind and say, well, hi, Mark, Jeff suggested I call you. And then Mark says, Jeff who? And he doesn't know. So I need to find out some more information than that before I start calling up Mark. Well, you know what? You're never not networking. Our mindset should always say, I am always networking, whatever I'm doing. Today, you are networking. So you put some information into the chat window of networking. We should be targeting people inside target companies, inside target industry or industry segments. So we start with the industry, then we list the companies, then we try to find the people. 6 degrees of separation, maybe you've heard of that. And 6 links away from anybody else in the world to make a connection. And some research was done that says that 3.5 on Facebook, assuming they're on Facebook. And the interesting thing is you have a 50% chance of success if it's just 2 links, which is why we ask the question, not just, do you know anyone who works at Toyota? We say, do you know anyone, or perhaps do you know anyone who knows someone at Toyota? Because 50% of the time we'll get a hit on that. It's an amazing statistic. And so it's like any type of question that you're asking, it really depends on the question you ask as to kind of the data you get. I mean, I look at these survey questions, you know, the best survey question that I like is, would you use our services again? Yes or no? Would you recommend it to somebody else? Yes or no? It's all I really need to know. I don't really need a whole lot. Anybody got any surveys recently? Don't you just love getting the, you know, you call anybody, you should get a survey. We got to discern and qualify. So I use the term contacts and connections. I may have a contact. I have a lot of contacts on LinkedIn. How many of those people of my contacts, I got over 1,000. How many of them do you think I know? I mean, I know anything about, that we've had a discussion, that we've talked to each other, anything like that. My criteria for connecting with somebody is pretty low. If you send me a personal note, say I saw you, met you, heard you, whatever it might be, and I would love to connect with you, I'll connect with you, all right? But if I get the standard one, then I'm not so like to say, well, I don't know you, I don't know how you know me, I don't know anything about you. And so it's a difference in feeling used and useful. I love that. John McDormand mentioned that yesterday in his networking thing. So we want to have our connections to when they feel useful. So figure out. So we look at our list. We go through all of our lists. You know, you can download all your LinkedIn connections. You can go through them and say, all right, who knows me? It's not necessarily about who I know as it is who knows me, because these are the people that I'm going to ask for a referral. These are the people that at least are on the potential list of providing that referral because they know something about me. And those are going to be the top of the list. And then the other ones where the relationship may not be strong, I've got to start strengthening that relationship. I got to start doing activities to get to know them and then to get to know me. So let me talk about calls for a moment, because we're going to do some networking There's always well, there's a cold call. I didn't list a cold call, which is we don't know anybody. All right. I need to add that one to the list. Then there's the cool call. That's where Mark says, well, call Jeff and give him my name. So I called Jeff and said, hi, Mark suggested that I call you. And hopefully he doesn't say who's Mark. So I got to find out that information. A warm call is good. It says, yes, I'll give you an introduction. I'll send an email or I'll call them to see if they would take, ask, would you ask them if they would take my call? Would you contact them and connect with them? An even better one is when the referral source requests a meeting between their contact and you. So they contact my objective, their person that they know, and me, and say, we'd like to get together. You guys set up a meeting. Then the best is a trilateral meeting where you all get together on Zoom or something, and you say, I want to introduce you to so-and-so, and I'll walk through this, whatever it is. You go through that. And then the best is when they call us. So Mark tells Jeff, says, listen, you really need to talk to Walt. He's got some presentations. I know you're looking for different presentations and stuff that you want to do in your job search, and I think you ought to check with Walt. And so Jeff says, well, I've known Mark now for years, and if he thinks Walt can do something, I better give him a call. And he'll call me, and we'll see if we can set something up. All right. We need to evaluate the person's potential to help as high, medium, and low. There are people that know us, people who have experience with us, that are simply not going to help. They're not going to do it. Those seeds have fallen into the thorns. They have fallen into the areas where people are just too busy. They're doing too many other things. They are not going to help you, all right? Those that are to be removed from your list. Then there are those who are, yeah, I can help you. At least they give me a name, they give me something, and they'll help. And then those who really go beyond the call of duty and say, yeah, and they'll come back with several possibilities. They're calling people, they're talking to people, they're doing things. So building relationships are face-to-face, phone, digital. Hardly face-to-face anymore, but it's coming back. So we would love to do face-to-face. That's much, much better. I can actually build a relationship stronger being face-to-face than I can over the phone or through Zoom. But on LinkedIn, give you a tip on LinkedIn. Sending that personal invitation, which is a differentiator. When a connection is made, sending a thank you note for connecting. Now, if you want to connect with me and you think that I might be able to, you look at my background and you see that I work for this company or that company, or you looked at other connections that I have that you may want to try to reach, then you might follow up with me and say, I'm very interested in talking with you. And can we have a phone call a little bit? And so networking is about them. It's not about us. It's about them. Arbiter will stress that over and over again. But let's build a relationship. So they start with, asking the person we want to connect to. So I'll saw on this, or if you see anything in common, you looked at their activity section, you looked on LinkedIn or whatever you can find that's something in common to get started with. It doesn't have to be much. It can be anything. I see we're both members of Toastmasters or whatever. So follow up and improve and nurture and build that relationship. Then be sure to say, how can I help you? I'm going to tell you that my definition of networking is relationshiping, all right? And it's a mutual beneficial relationship. If I network with you and all you feel is used, that's not going to be very successful. But if I network with you and your information shows value to me, and I tell you of the value that your information gave to you, then people feel good. People like to help. We ought to let people help us. Some of the reasons we don't, we're afraid to ask for help. We'll talk about that in a second. So nurture that. And I also got this from John McDormand. Some of the stuff that I used came back from him 20 years ago when I was going through his workshops, if you know about the career transition workshop. But high touch trumps high tech, all right? Face-to-face is better than the high tech, but research and information using our high tech, using LinkedIn, using the internet, using all the Google, etc., can prepare us for high touch. So that today we have more research tools available to us than we ever did. Ever. I mean, years ago, I was individually typing out letters, putting a copy of my resume and sending that out to companies all over the place when I was graduating from a call after I got my MBA. So I was, that was the method you used. You found a particular company and you just started sending that out, and you got all these reject letters. But out of all those I sent, I got an interview in Atlanta, Georgia, and I got a ticket to go out to Lawrence Livermore Laboratories in California. But I'd already accepted a job. I always wondered, what would that job be like if I had taken that?
Well, will you define again what do you mean by high touch?
Face to face. Basically, we're connecting face to face. Basically, yeah. It's hard to touch somebody on Zoom, It's hard to have, because they can't see all of our reactions. They can see our head a lot of times, but they can't see a lot of our body language. Nurture your network, keep in touch. The golden rule of reciprocity. Irma Bombeck said it in one way. He says, guilt, the gift that keeps on giving. Therefore, there's a culture in us that say, when I help you, we have a tendency to want to help back. So if you want people to help you, start helping them. Now, it's not a technique. It's something that you want to do. You want to build a relationship, be of value to someone in that relationship. So connect with people in their world, not ours. That's the perspective. What is their world like, not just ours? I'll go on a little bit more to go. Any questions on what we've talked about so far?
No, I'm going to save this. There's one question here, but I want to save it for the end.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about informational interviewing. So networking is what you do. Informational interviewing is how you do it, right? So what is it? Let's just couple of definitions to get started. In job search world, because you can network, you should be networking all the time, even in your jobs, working with other people, seeing how you can make their jobs easier, doing all those sort of things, networking, building connections out of contacts and doing all that stuff. But in the job search world, and even in when you're trying to gain information, even when you're working, I want to find somebody that knows what I'm looking to find out. How can I find that person who has that experience, that information, that kind of information that could help me? And I also want to find out what kind of ways I can help them. So I have a conversation about whatever I'm looking for, but they may be in a position to help us get a job in the future. So our motive in the job search mode is to see if I can build connections through relationshiping, and I'm helping them so that in turn, they have the potential possibility of helping me. And using the front door. So the front door, the back door to me is the applicant tracking system. The front door is when you get that referral inside the company. So we're building mutually beneficial relationships. So what do we want to know in an information interview? Well, we're trying to say, here's what do you think of my skill set? What do you think of my strategy in job search? What do you think of my resume? What do you think about what I'm trying to accomplish and do, as an example? I want to find out information about company, industry, competition, product, services, specific about a particular company or industry information. Do I really want to work here? All right, let me find out what's going on here. Before I even get into the interview, let me find out what it's like. What are they facing? What are their challenges? I remember when one of my references called me and said, I got a potential opportunity for you with this company. It works in education and they sell IT services to education history. And I said, okay, well, tell me. I haven't been in education before. Tell me about that. We talked about the education industry. I needed to get familiar with what the heck was going on in education. So what are the problems and challenges? All that kind of information. And so while he was contacting me on a potential opportunity, I turned that into an informational interview saying, well, give me all this information about this and what am I getting into? What do you think the job is, et cetera. because he became my referral. So what are the realities about working in field business or role from someone who knows it inside out? I love it when somebody says, the reality is, the truth is, and I say, you mean in your world, that's the reality and that's the truth. I'm not sure that everybody has godlike truth, whatever it might be. When I say the truth is, I just filter that one, says, well, it probably isn't absolute truth. Listen to the news today as if everyone's telling you the truth, right? Do you think anyone's telling you the truth? All right, so expand your professional network in your industry, because they may become a resource for you, mentor, coaches, whatever, for future opportunities, and improve. And this is great because now, without gaining this information, this is going to improve my interviewing skills. It's going to help me with confidence because I already have some information and can share that and demonstrate that in the interviews. And also uncover job opportunities that are not usually accessible. So there's that hidden job market. Believe it or not, everybody is hiring, all right? They're always hiring. If they don't have a position, but you talk with them and you discover how you can help them and do something that would be of value to them, they will create a position for you. You will show them that you can help them achieve their goals and objectives through that process. That can happen. We cannot assume that a company has got everything in control. And they, you listen to their issues and problems and say, well, gee, these are some of the things that I can help with, right? Learn what peers with traits and skills similar to you have done. So let me talk to some people that are in my role have done that kind of things and say, well, tell me, how did you go about it? Or what did you do? Or whatever it might be. Understand what's most important to employers. Apply new knowledge to create a better resume, make a better positive impression. All that information we gain and that knowledge we have is going to help us do a better job in the job search. And just don't forget to discover what we can do for them. It would really be great in the job search if we could build that rapport, make that connection, not a contact, so that we can get a potential referral. Which means I want them to have enough information so that they can represent me with trust and confidence to someone else, all right? How do I do that? I start with them, finding out about them, getting to that. That way I know I can communicate more effectively with them. And then when they start talking about me, I can start giving them that kind of information. Oh, I got a poll. How many of you are not ready for informational interview? You would answer A. B, I can't see it because let me move my poll. I'm not connected enough. I'm not good at networking. Here's a hard one. It's difficult to ask for help or something else. We've almost got half the responses. Come on, jump in there. Tell me what's going on out there in the world. Okay, let me copy this. All right. So we see almost a fourth of you are not ready yet. All right. Almost 15%. I'm not connected enough. 9%. So I'm really not good at it. And over a fourth of you are saying it is difficult to ask for help. And for those of you that say other, if you put something in the chat and say my other is, all right, what are the reasons that are barriers for doing informational interviews? I would appreciate that. Okay. Let me get my screen back. So how to gain confidence with informational interviews. don't be afraid to ask. Now, there's a certain way to ask. We don't want to say, can you help me? We don't want to say, and I've heard people, in the pit crew, as people would stand up and they would say, I'm this, I'm looking for that. And so I'm looking for something in the North Dallas area. So if you know of anything, let me know. And I can just see, all the people rushing out to discover opportunities in the North Dallas area for this particular individual. If we don't make it easy for people to help us, our chances of success in getting help are low. So we always want to make it easy, and we always want to do it in their frame of reference. But we can ask, okay? So do our research, prepare our questions. This is critical. We talked about your company criteria. So if you want to go in and your purpose in the information interview is to find out about the company, I would have my criteria list, and I would start asking questions that would give me information about my elements in my criteria list that are important to me, and find out. So having those, because it's going to be a short time. We want to keep it short. Always follow up, always give me a thank you note. And here's something that I'm seeing a lot of people that do not do, and that is feedback on how was that information useful to you? How did it help you? It would be great, if you gave somebody and said, here's somebody to talk to you. And if I came back to you and said, I talked to Mark and Jeff, I just want to let you know that we had a really great conversation. Here's what we're going to do going forward. I really appreciate the effort and the connection that you made. Thank you so much. All right. People feel good when they help you. People like to help. When people ask you for help, how do you feel? Do you feel used? Or are you ready to say, well, what can I do? We like helping people, right? We ought to be able to use that. We have this fear of asking for help, when in actuality, it's backwards. People would love to help us. Now, if they don't, they say no, and you go on. You'll get some of that. But in general, it's the way you do it. It's the amount you ask for. It's the process that you use. So I'm going to help you a little bit with that. So we want to build relationships and develop future connections, supporters, and champions. So it's the long point, the long term that we're looking at, not the short term. In other words, I just need your help during my job search, and then goodbye. I don't need you anymore. I'm busy doing other things. I found that people who are working today that have been in the job search mode in the last year or so, they're a lot more willing to help people. So one of the things you look at in their LinkedIn and look at their job is how long have they been working there? I mean, that means there was some point in time they were looking for a job, something like that. That might be say, they might be a lot more easily able to help me than a person who hasn't had a job search in a while. So we don't want to think of just as a one-off meeting, but it's just that long-term view to cultivate that. Other benefits. Wouldn't you like to be known in the hidden job market? So if I'm nurturing a connection, I'm talking and I ask them if they know somebody. No, they don't. But I come back to them later, a couple of weeks maybe or so, and I said, I just want to let you know that I'm still in the job search mode. I'm still looking. I'm very interested in this kinds of things. Do you know anyone that might be able to give me some information on that? And I'll give you a little script to help you with that. Keep asking, because a lot of it is timing. And what we want to do is sow those seeds so that when something occurs, they will think of you. Because, oh, I know somebody who's looking for that. That's our key. Visibility. We can get right to the top of the short list. The referrals, Mark gave an example, went straight to the hiring manager. Didn't go through all that other disqualification process, not the qualification process, and increases the confidence. So the better prepared you are, the better you're going to feel in the job interviews to give you that confidence. And so build a rapport and make a connection with referrals. So try to benefit your contact before you even ask for help. All right. Help them first. Give them some information. Let them know about an industry event. I'll introduce a person. So you got to find out something about them that might be a beneficial value to them before you even start asking for help. So let me give you a sample script, because I know I should get a referral, but how should I do that? What is it? I need some help. I'm not prepared. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions to help you get started. So imagine I'm talking to you now. All right. And I met you I've skipped part of it. I've skipped the intro. I've just got to some meat here. So I'm in the process of making some important career decisions, and I believe your advice would be extremely helpful. Now, how do you feel when I tell you that? I'm seeking your advice and information. I'm looking for this, and I think it would be extremely helpful to me. Would you feel positive? Would you feel good or feel negative? How would you feel? I think we'd feel good. Somebody values the information I can give. I'm trying to learn more about your whatever it is that I'm trying to learn about, to determine if it'd be right for me. And your insight and experience could be very important as I make this decision. So I'm about to listen to you in such a way as you have valuable information for me. That's our mindset when we are listening to them. I only need about 20 minutes of your time. And now I want to close this thing. I don't want to just say, do you have time to talk to me? So let's try to set it up. Can we set up a meeting for next Tuesday or Wednesday? All right. So I'm requesting a referral. This is a little different than just getting the information interview, but I want somebody to perhaps refer me. So example, I'm Fred Johnson, and now how do I know you? What is it that we have in common? Why am I talking to you, in other words, all right? I'm interested in whatever interest I have, and I'm looking for people in this arena, have this knowledge, have this experience, have whatever it is that I can use to describe the criteria for the kind of person that I'm looking for, along with the information. It can be giving me what type of information am I looking for, as well as any additional thoughts on maybe some other types of information I'm looking for. With your experience, background, or whatever it might be that says, here's why I value your information. Here's why you are important to me. Here's why I want to listen to you. And I believe you might know the kind of people I'm looking for. So who do you know who could give me that information, or who fits this description? A little bit differently than do you know anyone? But here we're just looking for a person. We're looking for a contact. So I'm asking you to say, how does that sound to you as I'm talking and asking this kind of question and using that kind of script to you? Would you be more willing to say, well, let me think a minute, let me see if I can find somebody, or not? So here's a potential script. There's many different ones you can use, but this is just an example. Hi, Melanie, I'm Fred Johnson. I met you at Toastmasters last month. I'm interested in exploring opportunities in the healthcare industry, and I'm looking for finance executives who might provide insights on the issues healthcare finance is facing, as well as thoughts on how to make this shift in my career. I've always thought of you as someone whose advice I value, with your experience and background, as someone who might know the kind of people I'm looking for. Who do you know that could give me that information, or who fits that description? So there's another kind of example, and it's kind of following the why do I value you? How do I know you? Where did I meet you? How did I get your name? That sort of thing. So a little bit more in depth as it controls the intro as well. All right. Opening, questions, and closing. So I want to introduce myself and what's the purpose of our meeting here today. All right. If you look at that recent, the previous slide, you'll see that that's what that follows. But when I'm in the interview itself, I want to have questions, and I want to find out about. Now, here's my list of information that I want to find out. For example, I want to find out about an individual. I want to find out about the company or competitors or industry or something. So what information am I really looking for? And then in the close, I want to ask, are there any others I should talk to? One of the best things that we can do that we fail to do sometimes is we don't ask for additional connections. So I've talked with you about this. I have these kind of questions. Do you know any others? It's plural, not another person, but others that I could talk to. If they give you names, anyone else, all right? So you're asking for additional people to talk to that could maybe help you along the way. And what can I do to help you? Now, even if they don't have anything, the fact that you offered is going to make a difference. We maybe in that discussion, you said, you've talked about this. I might have some information that can help you. Could I send you that information? And you might have some follow-up information you can send them to help them. Stay within that time limit. All right. If you say 20 minutes, stay within 20 minutes. Honor that time. So I'm available if you wish to talk further, but at least acknowledge and recognize that your time is up. And if they want to talk longer, fine. But always stay within that time frame. Keep that commitment. Be prepared to change the subject back to you. And they say, well, tell me about you and your search and what are you doing? All right. So you got to have your business cards, your biography, resume, whatever information you might have handy so that you can provide that to them. And some of these morph into a job interview. I said, well, let's talk about this. And, we've talked about these kind of issues and things in the questions today. And you're kind of looking for this. And, we have some of those issues. And next thing you know, you're in a job interview. Follow up, thank you note, tracking, result. That result is anybody that gives you help, somewhere down the line, you want to send them something telling them the value of the help they gave you. That's extremely important because otherwise we just kind of feel used. I gave you the information and you said thanks and I don't ever know what happened. Questions?
Well, the only question I had was, or the question somebody asked was, when should, about sending resumes out and, using a one-page bio. And that's one of the things I put a link in the chat box of the Minna Brown's presentation of the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group talking about when to use a one-page bio. And it's a networking tool because a resume, you don't really know the details of what they're looking for. So you don't want to send out a generic resume.
When I'm asking somebody for help and having them represent me, the bio can be the tool that says, well, here's some information about Walt. I can provide that bio to someone else to give that information. All right. I could also put some brief information in an email. So I can send you this and say, well, if you talk to, you want to talk to another person that would be beneficial in talking to me, here's some 2 or 3 pieces of information that I'm going to include in here that I want you to be able to tell them what you know about me to help them do that. In other words, they're not just going to go in there and drop a resume off on a desk. Now, that's not all that bad, okay? But it's certainly a lot better if they come in and say, yeah, I've had a conversation with Walt and he does this, he talks about this. I think it'd be great if you contacted him. So what are those 2 or 3 bullets? Help them with that information. Or here's a bio. Doesn't say I'm looking for a job. It says, here's that information about me. So I'm making it easy for them to give that information to that third person.
Great. Well, thank you. I know we're over our time limit here.
Because if they ask for your resume, then you've got it. So yeah, I can send you a copy because they might want to take your resume too.
Right. But if you're going to send the resume, be sure get some details because you want to make sure you're going to focus your resume on what they're looking for. So until you've had a conversation with somebody, you've got to be very careful about just blindly sending out a resume. Or even if they say, well, send me your resume, well, tell me exactly what you're looking for so I can focus my resume on what your requirements.
If your information interview hasn't given you that type of information, whether the resume is not appropriate.
Well, Walt and Mark, thank you all very much. Just some other training that we've got coming up here the rest of this week and next week. We're putting on training 5 days a week now. Tomorrow, Thursday, for Effective Resume Thursdays at 1 o'clock, resumes versus your LinkedIn profile. What's similar and what's different? So join us for that on Thursday. This Friday at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group meeting at 9:30 in the morning, our speaker is going to talk about communicating your self-worth. Your emotional intelligence matters. And then this Friday at 1 o'clock, Women of Wisdom will be meeting. They meet the first and third Friday of every month. You do need to be invited. If you're interested, you can send an email to wow@careerdfw.org, and the email will go to the person who's leading the group and can tell you more about that.
Pretty good, Jeff. You got the WOW. I heard this morning that was women out of work. So I
Well,
think
they
you did
changed,
better.
they changed it, right? They went from women out of work to women of wonder to women of wisdom. So that's what they've gone to now. So then next Monday, our networking Monday, we've talked about networking a lot here. Foster Williams, the master networker, the guy who goes everywhere, all the time, anywhere. You got questions about networking. He'll be with us on Monday, networking where's, how's, and why's. And then next Tuesday, our speaker on LinkedIn will be talking about LinkedIn from a recruiter's eye. This is Kurt Vondermatter, who pays LinkedIn around $10,000 a year to use a recruiting package. Next Wednesday, we'll be on session number 12, difficult interviews, questions, and cultivating confidence. So that'll be lesson number 12 next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career FW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. If you go to the YouTube channel, which is really the easiest way to view all these things, if you click on playlist, and then don't click on the video, but click underneath the subject you're looking for where you see that green arrow, view full playlist, and up will come a list of all the different sessions, and you can pick whatever session is you need to go back and watch, or that you want to watch again, or if you've missed something, you can go back and catch up on all these sessions. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops, please join the Career USA mailing list. You can send an email to career+subscribe@groups.io. I'll leave that email address up here at the very end of our presentation. Please remember, Career FW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Walt's a volunteer, Mark's a volunteer, I'm a volunteer. I've never gotten paid to do anything I've done over the last 12, 13 years. I do this as a volunteer to give back to the community. We're here to help you land your next great opportunity. Career FW, we survive on donations. It pays for Zoom, it pays for the web names, it pays for the web hosting. So please consider making a donation when you get your next opportunity. So thank you very much for joining us today. Walt, Mark, thank you again. And there's that email address if you'd like to join our distribution list. Have a great afternoon.